It's here, it's here, it's here, it's here, it's here. My transmission's here. My transmission's here. Ah! Let's go! Is that for me?
Forklift operator.
Oh, I got it. Oh, I saw him coming. I came running down. Get out of my way. It's a forklift. Sorry, it's not cameras. It's my transmission. Always in trouble. So much trouble. She's still yelling at me. She thinks I'm in there or something. Tonight we are going to put the transmission that's in the back of my truck there into the Porsche, which is in the garage right here. We have the old one out already, as you can see on the floor. That one is the troublemaker. It just keeps getting stuck in gear and I can't figure out exactly what it is. We just don't know. So we may end up tearing it down and rebuilding it, or we are going to just sell it off and let somebody else that really understands these things have at it. I got this one off of the truck the other day and it is ready to go in. Perfect. Okay guys, here we go. Got something holding it up over there. All right, so I'm gonna show you what my plan is. And I'm not really sure if I'm gonna stick to it or not, but right now I have this short shift kit on this one, and I think I'm gonna just leave it on here for now, and I'm gonna try just using the stock shift kit, the linkage that comes with the one that's on in here. There's a couple things that happened, like I'm not really sure if this is relevant to what's going on, but before I put this transmission in, I used to have to push down on the gear shift or go over to get it in reverse. With this one, I've never had to do that. We also removed the whole entire linkage, and the guy that helped me put it back in, we could have put it in wrong, and maybe that just is gone now, and maybe there was a spring or something missing. But I think it's something in the linkage and something internal in here, and I think that this one already has all the stock linkage already hooked up to it. Everything is there, and so we're gonna just try to leave that on, set it up that way. Unfortunately, to get this top piece on, you almost have to pull this thing out or at least drop it down. So if I do decide to put this back on, I'm gonna have to take a couple extra steps, but I kind of want to experiment with this and see what happens. And I also want to replace all the seals on this one eventually. So let's just get it in, make sure it works, mock it up, and then we'll pull it back out and add this stuff if everything is working right. So this thing is too heavy for me to lift. It's too big. It's got some cardboard boxes in it, so I'm just gonna tip it over like this. And I'm gonna slide that one out of there. So the good news is the guy that I bought this from in Georgia, he used to race 944s all the time, so he knew a lot about it. He took about 10 minutes, talked to me on the phone before we shipped it, just to make sure I was getting the right thing. And he knew so much about these things. And I really believe everything he says about that. He says it's got about 140,000 miles on it. It's out of a 944S, 1987, which is the same year I have here. This one is out of a 1986, I believe, based on the stamping on the bell housing up here. Let's go ahead and pull this one out. Oh my God, these are heavy. Oh, don't smash your hand. It'd be cool if you put little presents for me in those boxes, but it doesn't look like that's the case. This one is the one I just bought. This is the one I just took out. You could see that I've got like a little plug right here, and there's also a little plug right there. Those both seem to be intact. Not sure what that one is, but right here on this one is the speedometer. Right here on this one, there is no speedometer. So I'm gonna need to remove that one, put it on that one, swap them out basically. But you can see definitely there's a huge difference in this linkage that I've got here. And this is actually from a company called only944.com. I really like it. It's a really solid piece. But then you start looking at this one and you can see it's a little looser. There's not quite as, there's a little bit more play in it than there is in this one. So I'm going to leave this here. Like I said, we're going to leave that linkage, see if we can get things to work. This piece here, and then we have this piece here that will screw into these two pieces. I'm going to go ahead and take this off, and we're going to use the one that's already up in the car. I've never done this before, so let's do it together. So I'm going to go ahead and just replace that speedometer sensor that's here, put that one in there. 22, there it is, 22 millimeter. Right, tighten. Whoa, look at that. What's this thing do? Oh, it's the little plastic gear that sits down in there. That thing sits like that. That gear spins. That sends a signal up here to tell me how fast I'm going. Now this gear oil definitely looks dirtier, but on that one, that thing's been torn apart like 8 times trying to figure out what's going on with it. So I guess that's to be expected. So last night I was going to go ahead and loosen that bolt up that loosens this part up that slides onto the drive shaft, and I couldn't get that off. It does not open, doesn't slide. So today I'm going to try this again. We're going to try really hard to get that off or loose so we can slide that onto the drive shaft. Let's try it again. All right, I just thought I would show you guys where I'm at. We got it up in there in the slot, but the one thing that you need to make sure that you do is get in the cab here, and you're gonna want to take the shifter off of here. Typically there's a little bracket or pin that you pull off of here, and this thing will slide right off. You want to remove this cotter pin that's down here. So we'll pull that out. Don't lose this washer, because that guy is important. You want to have as little play in this as possible when you're done. So we're going to just separate these two. Sorry about that. Separate these two. So that is going to sit on its own like that. And then when we're dropping the transmission out, this piece is going to be all the way up here. So it's going to allow the transmission bell housing to kind of go down without hitting this and catching and trying to flip it back. It's got to sit almost in here like this. So it's way up here to get that part to go in. And then we're going to have to take this and put it back together here. A lot of people say that this is sort of a weak point in the linkage, and that sometimes the wear on this will actually create a little bit of movement in between these two parts, which creates a little slop. And I can actually tell. It's really interesting. Like, you probably can't see it, but I can see that there's a little wear and tear in there that probably causes my shifter to move a little more than it has to. Again, I'm kind of just mocking this up. I just want to get it in, drive it, see what difference it is between this one and that one. So there's the old one, and then we got the new one. Let's get underneath here. So we got the new used one, I should say, in here. So I zip tied my axles up so they would be out of the way. I got this under here well enough to actually just get these things in here hand tight, and then the rest of the weight is being held on the jack. And then I've got to get up here and get those bolts in, and then we'll put the axles on. I got 2 bolts up there on that thing, and one on each side. So one on that side, one over here on that side. We'll plug in the plugs, and I will put the axles back on these parts. I went through last night and I sprayed some WD-40 in these holes to try to loosen them up, and I took one of these bolts out and kind of just threaded them in just to make sure that they were going to thread in okay. And so far so good. And then we can cut the zip ties, do that. I do have to put that mount on that's back here, so I'm not out of the woods yet. But I just mocked it up to make sure everything's going to fit. Is that I want to change the linkage. Everything here worked. The shifting is kind of weird, but it also doesn't have any gear oil in it right now. So I'm thinking that maybe once we put some in, all this stuff will loosen up, but you can see it's pretty rusty too. So maybe putting some WD-40 or something like that on there might help. So you can see right here, the clearance between this part and this part here is about a ½ inch. So we're going to have to drop this part down first. So we're going to kind of tilt it down and then pull it out back this way. When we get the axles out, we want to try to get the axles up and out of the way. So we're going to zip tie those with some big gigantic zip ties. You could use wire, you could use rope or whatever, but you want to try to get them up and out of the way when you do drop it down. There's a speedometer sensor right back in here. You want to take that and make sure you unplug this guy. And so we're going to do all of that right now. Zip, zip, zip. And this thing has turned into way more than I thought. The guy that I bought it from sounds like he's really knowledgeable about these transmissions. So I kind of just went on a leap of faith and I trusted him on a lot of things. I also bought it through eBay, and eBay's got a really good insurance program. I also paid it with PayPal, and PayPal has a really good money back protection for me as a buyer. So hopefully we don't have any issues with that, but I am protected. I really wanted to mock this up. There were some things that were different about the transmission that I put in there versus the stock one. So when I bought the car, it had the naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, and then we put in a totally different transmission when we put the V8 in. And it's one that I had never driven with before. It never went in with the 4-cylinder, but it was always a little funky. The first time I drove it, it got stuck in first gear. Just didn't think anything of it. I thought maybe somebody did something wrong. I did some research, and there's a couple detents in the very back of the gearbox that if they don't get put in correctly, they'll slip out, and that could cause this to happen. I found a couple people that had the same problem, and that was what it was. We exhausted every option. We tried everything. Thank you, Brad, over at Brad's Transmission. He stuck with me. He was a man of his word. He thought that he had done something wrong, and we tried really hard to fix it, and we're not sure to this day what is going on with it. So I wanted to put this transmission with the stock linkage on it, and supposedly this has never been messed with. This is a stock transmission with an LSD out of a 1987 944S, which is what my car is. The cool thing about this is it does have the LSD, and it does have the bigger splines and the bigger gears. I don't know anything about transmissions, so otherwise I'd be pulling this thing apart myself. If it was the engine, I would do it myself. I just don't know much about transmissions. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this to the guys at German Transaxle. I don't know much about transmissions. So I want to do all the seals. I want to get everything kind of just looked over, make sure there's no bearings that are like completely destroyed. The guy that I bought it from did say he took the side plate off, and he looked at the magnets, and there was no metal or any kind of indication of, you know, hardware or things kind of falling apart inside. So he felt, you know, he used to race these cars, so he felt that this, you know, by looking at that and the main bearing inside, that everything looked like it was in pretty good shape. And then I was able to spin everything turned the way it was supposed to. Overall, comparatively to the one that I took out and the one that I'm putting in, they kind of feel almost the same. I could feel a little bit more play in the one that I just took out. And the one that I'm putting in seems a little tighter, but it might be all up here, like me just hoping it's going to be a better transmission. I'm certain I'm not going to have this gear problem with this one. And I also wanted to just do this right. So we're going to get it cleaned up. We're going to get seals. And I want to go talk to Ken too. If he has a second, I'd love to show you his outfit because he's got a really awesome shop and he knows so much about these transmissions and he does so many of them. He ships them out all over the world. The guy is kind of a genius and he's got a great team that he works with. So if I have a chance, I'm going to walk you guys through his shop. We'll take a look over there and then we'll get this thing finished up. And I think in the next video, we'll go ahead and go pick it up from him as a finished product and we'll put that in the car and then we'll take it for a ride. So thank you guys for being patient with me. I'm sorry this is taking way longer than I thought it would. I thought I'd be able to take it out and just stick it right in, but there's a couple things I want to do. When I do something, I like to do it the right way and just do it once. Hopefully you guys are with me. Thank you guys for watching and you'll see me in the next video. Let's go!